Worcestershire Libraries production, thanks to the amazing technical majesty of Anita Kiss, who is from the Business and Intellectual Property Centre at the Hive in Worcester, which is open for click and collect. Over to you, Anita, for the etiquette.
Good morning. Yes, good morning on behalf of Worcestershire Libraries and the Hive. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time on this sunny day to come along to our business book club. This is something that we run every last Saturday of the month, where we have the fantastic Angela Podmore, founder of Kinetic Communications, and she is usually in conversation with an inspiring entrepreneur who kindly shares with us their business experience and also the books that have inspired them. So it's usually an uplifting, fantastic conversation that every time I'm really looking forward to. So yes, hopefully you won't regret missing the sun. So yes, please do engage. We want you to interact with us. We want you to ask questions of Glenn in particular. So please pop your questions into the chat box as we go along. Feel free to use the chat for questions, comments, anything that you think of. I'll be monitoring that and then passing over to Ange towards the end of the session. At the end, we'll have a Q&A moment where you can feel free to just jump in and ask questions, unmute yourselves or give us a wave, whichever's easiest for you, really, we'll manage it. Yeah, hi, Darren. Sorry, was that the wave? We'll manage it. So yes, if it's easier for you to use the chat, use the chat. If you want to pop your hand up, you can do. So yeah, back to you, Ange. That's it from me.
So when we designed this book club a year ago, Anita and I did not imagine that we would have COVID coming our way. So it was supposed to be face-to-face, and we do hope to return to that or a blended form of that later on. But in the meantime, we're in the Zoomiverse. We're not complaining, are we, Anita? It's served us well, and spring is in the air. Come on, people. Wherever we find you this morning, we hope you can grab a drink, tuck up on the sofa, because it's 10 o'clock and it's the last Saturday of the month, which means we're in conversation with, little drum roll, according to Herefordshire and Worcestershire Chamber of Commerce, one of Herefordshire's most revered businessmen, Glenn Jones. Welcome, Glenn.
Good morning.
You may recognise him. He's been on the telly quite a bit at the moment. He's a bit of a media mogul. Anyway, he's managing director and he's part-time when he's not being a media mogul. He is managing director of Discover Parks. Discover Parks is in Herefordshire. They have Pearl Lake in Shobdon, Rockbridge in Presteigne, as well as Arabank at Eardisland. And each one of those is a five-star lake, isn't it? We just a five-star lake, a five-star park, with holiday homes and lodgings as well as static and other caravans. But there's no overhead power cables, are there, Glenn? No gas bottles to ruin this rural idyll, and the motto that they live by is where life feels right. And homeowners are typically from the West Midlands. They enjoy a break away from city life in their easy to reach rural oasis, and it's complete with top-notch golf, fishing and lakes and other sports facilities. Long-term business thinking runs deep in the Jones family genes, because they were originally from farming stock, and Glenn's family diversified into tourism 50 years ago. He left school at age 15 with only a GCSE in metalwork to his name, but he did go to university, the University of Life, and that led him to become the youngest chairman of the National Farmers. And he'd started young, he joined age 12, and he travelled the world with the young farmers. He met almost every member of the royal family and 2 prime ministers, and he continues to contribute today as a trustee and as a committee member. So contributing still. For all of that, what I love about Glenn is he's this hard-headed businessman. You don't get to run these parks without having that ability to take tough decisions, but he's got a big heart, and we're part of the same business leader group that meets regularly, and whenever we're banging the world to rights, as business leaders are prone to do, you can imagine there's no shortage of opinions in there. Glenn's always the one with the kind word and the reality check. He is the voice of reason, and the great news is that he's weathered the storm. He's weathered the storm, and he's come through the other side of COVID, and they're still retaining their 30-strong team, and they're ready for the staycation boom. Are you not, Mr. Jones?
I am indeed. Thank you, Ange. I'm blushing after that lovely introduction. I'm all embarrassed.
This book club is for everyone. It's for high flyers like Glenn that are running medium-sized enterprises, but it's also for those starting their business journey. We are products of our environment. Make sure you mix with the right people, and hopefully all those right people are here this morning to share valuable insights, not just from Glenn, but also with your questions and things, please. And he's going to tell us about the books that have shaped his business thinking, which is often about his very philosophy and perhaps how they've helped him fare through the various challenges. But anyway, come on, people, let's get your weekend off to the best start, and let's not waste too much time. Let's cut to the chase and let the conversation take us where it will. Glenn, given, I think it's fair to say that you are now academic at school, which book got you started?
And I've always loved reading. When I was a child, I would devour Enid Blyton books. You know, the famous 5. I'd read 2 a day, and then when I got that habit, you know, I grew up with Blue Peter. That was my thing, and I loved reading. I watered it down when I was about, I don't know, 9 or 10, and it just progressed from there. I was hungry for books, and then the sad thing, I think, is that at some point in adult life, I lost that reading habit. And if there is a silver lining, there's some, you know, COVID's been awful for the world, but there's some good aspects to how we've had to reappraise our lives. Is I've refound my love of reading. It's enabled me to shut off and tune out from all the, you know, when we were obsessed with watching the news all the time. I found turning to a good book was great therapy. So I got into Jojo Moyes, and you know, that was just a bit different. Robert Harris, I really like that, where he based it on things in history, but told in a very compelling, gripping story. So I've really enjoyed my fiction, and it's great now that, you know, we all love reading at home. I've got 2 children, and you know, there's nothing gives me greater pleasure when, you know, we're sat together, the telly's not on, and we're all reading. It sounds a bit twee, but it's just fantastic. I'm really so proud of that.
I think so, because it's a quiet silence that you're all in it together, that you're all enjoying in your own world, in your own book, but you're all sharing that experience. Is that it?
Yeah, it is. Hannah, my wife, she's always loved reading. And what I think I'd recommend this is, since she's 15, she's kept a log of all the books she's read. And, you know, sometimes she'll reread. She loves the classics. She'll read the Brontes, I don't know how many times. So I think that's, if you're young tuning in, I'd really recommend doing that. I think that's a very good thing.
And so you'd always been into these books, but when you came out of school, tell us about that journey then through books, as it were, which, before we get into the first one, perhaps.
Yeah, journey through books. Well, I say I read a lot, and then I kind of lost it, and I got back to it. I think.
Have you only just got back into it since COVID?
Yeah, I suppose over the years I've dipped in and out a bit. I would read a lot of business books, but I think what happens is, you know, we're bombarded by information. I got the Times online. I love the BBC News and sports page, The Economist, The Spectator, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Facebook, you name it. All this information is coming at us, and it's hard to find the time. And like I say, now I've really enjoyed the therapy. It's helped my mental health, actually.
Which book would you say is your comfort blanket book? Which book would you regularly refer to because you think, oh, I love sinking into that book. When I go into that world, it makes me feel calm and positive and optimistic and sort of loosened up?
I like the books that grip me. So all the sort of Jack Reacher stuff and that sort of thing. Like I say, Jojo Moyes and Robert Harris recently. I particularly recommend Robert Harris to people. I've learned a lot. You know, there's 3 books on the Roman Empire, all sorts of things like that. And so I feel as if I'm learning as well as really enjoying it.
Fatherland's particularly interesting as well, isn't it? With a different outcome to the Second World War and how that would play out, etc.
There's some amazing films. I've always lived my life by this. Sliding Doors, that Gwyneth Paltrow film, where her whole life hinges on that moment in time. And you know, there's a whole series of I don't know, gateways that we face in our life, and how things can turn out to be differently just because of sometimes a relatively innocuous decision, or maybe it is a big one. So the whole what if, you know, what if the referendum had gone the other way, and what if, you know, in our own lives, you know, I've been out with a group of friends at a young farmers dance, and You think, oh, this is a rubbish do, I'll go home. This is going back a long time, of course. And so just hang on, you never know. And you never know who you might meet in that moment that might change your life forever. So be open to that for sure.
And is there a book that you could say, gosh, I could remember reading that and that gave me the confidence perhaps to do something, not even radical, but to follow through on something that perhaps people were questioning whether it was the right thing to do?
Oh, goodness, you got me thinking.
Or a challenge? Can you remember where you were up against a particular challenge?
I mean, you talked about when I left school. By the way, I did get some other O levels, but I got the CSE grade 3 in metalwork.
Stop showing off now, Glenn.
Yeah, well, not many, I hasten to add. And a year later, I got 3 distinctions in an engineering City and Guilds qualification. And I don't say that, say, wow, look at me. But it was one of the greatest motivators in my life. The metalwork teacher I had, we just didn't get on. We clashed, I'm sorry to say. And I could say some more things about him, but I'm being recorded, so I won't. And I thought, it probably gave me the kick in the pants that I needed. And I thought, I can do better than this. And so I worked harder and was really motivated and turned that result around. And so that, if there was a pivotal moment for me in that, you're not going to just cruise through, you've got to work at it. That metalwork teacher did me a favor. And a year later, I wanted to go and say, actually, I've turned this around. But sadly, he died in the meantime, which was really frustrating.
Divine justice. Glenn, go back to that pivotal moment. So you'd done okay that you'd got that GCSE from school. Sorry to hark on about this, but then what motivated you to, no, I am going to pursue that more, and that led to that decision? No, I'm going to go into, because some people may be struggling with, oh, I've not done brilliantly at this, but I know this is where my heart lies. What took you on?
I think it goes back to that. I just wanted to show that I was more capable and better than that. And I could have gone on to do A levels. I was geared up to go. And my great friend, Graham Jenkins, went, and he met up with Julian Dunkerton, who went on to found Superdry. So you see, we talk about the Gwyneth Paltrow moments. Perhaps if I had gone and done my A levels, maybe Julian and I had been best buddies and we'd have formed Superdry together, and it could be a different story. So you just don't know. And
you are quite a snappy dresser, Jones. I can see that happening.
Thank you. Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe it was there and I missed out. You never know.
Anyway, going back to that pivot, you just knew that you were better. You knew that there was more in you than you'd shown through your academic results. So that encouraged you to go on to FE, and where you went with the fairies, as it were, from there. Okay, let's get into your first book, Glenn. Which is your first book?
Well, it follows on from that theme. So that's a beautiful segue. So my first book is by Matthew Syed. He's a brilliant Times journalist, and I forgot to say how I came to choose these books. So it's been a great exercise. I've really enjoyed it. I've got so many books I could have chosen, but I had 2 criteria. The first was they had to be books that I'd read twice. They were that good that I had to go back to them. And the second criteria was that I was looking at it through the prism that if I got zapped on Zoom today or died of Zoomitis, which to be honest is quite possible, that if my children read any books, these are the 7 to read. If they want to have that business entrepreneurial spirit, these are the 7 books. So Matthew Syed's Bounce was his first book he wrote. He's a sort of British version of Simon Sinek, maybe, or could be potentially. He was a world champion table tennis player, and there's 3 parts to this book. The first is that there's no such thing as talent. So he talks about Mozart and Serena Williams and David Beckham and Tiger Woods and these phenomenally successful people. And he says they weren't actually that talented. They just worked extremely hard, 10,000 hours of whatever it might be to get to a point. And
that's building on Malcolm Gladwell, that tipping point thing.
Yeah, he references Malcolm Gladwell in here. And the second aspect of that, which is that there's no such thing as failure. So every time you fall down, you pick yourself up, and don't beat yourself up. It's just a learning opportunity. And the other aspect of it is, what is the motivation that got Serena out on that tennis court when she was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Pushy parents, there's a very fine line there. You've got to find the trigger that works for the for the child. And you know, that I don't know what the answer is to that. You have to find your own way. But the thing about working hard and not having failure is some really good themes there. The other thing is, I'd say about Matthew Syed, this isn't one of my 7 books, but he did write You Are Awesome, and it's designed as a book for children. But to be honest, I would say to anybody out there now, get a copy and have a little read. When you're feeling a bit pooped and a bit down and a bit weighed under, just have a little read of that, and you know, you'll feel revived.
That's your comfort blanket, your
Oh,
literature.
yeah, there we go. Yeah.
That's your literature comfort blanket. Matthew Syed Bounce, okay, is the one that you would recommend your children use. And how many times have you read it? Go on, admit it.
Well, 2-3 times. Yeah, I had a flick
Yeah.
through sort of 2.5 times, I suppose. Was ready for today. I had a little look to remind myself.
Excellent. Right then, on to number 2 then, please, Glenn. What's your second one?
Number 2. So you won't be surprised as a business person to say I've got Richard Branson. And now he's written many books, but this is a quick book. It's very short. It's Screw It, Let's Do It, Lessons in Life. And there's, I think, 8 chapters. And if I was to choose one of my 7 as the one to keep going back to, I'd say it was this one. And I'd say don't even you necessarily need to read the book. Just read the chapter heading. So I'm just going to give you a flavor. Chapter 1, believe it can be done, have goals, live life to the full, never give up, prepare well, have faith in yourself, help each other. You know, chapter 3, be bold, whole load of things there. Chapter 2, have fun, on we go. Chapter 5, stand on your own feet, work together. Let me give you 2 more. And chapter 6, live the moment, enjoy the moment, reflect on your life, make every second count, don't have regrets. 7, value family and friends, be loyal, face problems head on, pick the right people and reward talent.
That's great. And do you know what I love about Branson? Chris Evans, in his autobiography, he said about when he was buying Virgin, Branson asked, do you mind if I just have a quiet word with you alone? And everybody advised Chris Evans, don't do that. He's a viper. He's going to take you in there into his lair and he'll do this, that and the other to you and fox you, blah, blah, blah. And actually he just sat him down and said, you do realise if this doesn't work out, you'll be bankrupt. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? That even though he was the seller and it was in his interests to sell it to Chris Evans, he was warning him that you do know the risk you're riding here, don't you?
Yeah, I guess it's back to being, well, not just true to yourself, but true to others and being kind. And then, you know, I'm getting ahead of myself here. There's a karma to that.
Oh, go on. How are you getting ahead of yourself?
Well, let's get to book 7 and then I shall share.
Oh, right. Okay. Book 7. Right then, go on to book number 3, please.
Okay. So you'll have heard this, you and I together lots over
I know
the
what's
years.
coming. I don't even need to know.
Yeah. So anybody who hasn't in the whole wide world listened to the YouTube clip of TED Talk of Simon Sinek, then go with this. And you've heard a lot of people talk about it. And you mentioned when you were introducing me that you know, we our motto, our why, I would say, is 3 great parks where life feels right. So as a thing that's really helped me in business, it was listening to that TED Talk and reading the book. And to illustrate it, I suppose for me personally, it was talking about what you do, how you do it, and the why. So the what we do at its most base level, you know, you could say we sell green and wooden metal boxes in a field, and it doesn't sound great. But or we could say we sell luxurious holiday homes, and they're in stunning surroundings with a whole range of amazing facilities, and that's true. But it's still not quite getting to it. Why do we do it? So we came up with when I dwelled on it, slept on it, thought on it, was where life feels right for a couple of reasons. The first of all, Simon Sinek talks about feeling right, and that's such a powerful emotion. If you go out to buy new clothes or buy a car or meet your partner, you know, you have to have that feeling. And you could meet hundreds of people or look hundreds of cars or whatever it might be. And there's a moment when you sit in the seat. I remember when we were looking to move house, and we'd looked at a few and it didn't feel right. And then we looked at one that didn't really fit our criteria. And Hannah and I stepped into the hall, and at the corner of our eyes, there was this frizz on. And we were only in one room, and we knew this felt right. This was going to be our home. We've been there 14 years and we absolutely love it. So feeling right is a very powerful phrase.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we want it that where their life feels right. So, you know, everybody works really hard. You said most of our customers come from the West Midlands conurbations. They, you know, running their own business, frontline NHS, whatever it might be. And they drive out an hour and a half, and they want to be able to sit and relax and think, this is my reward. This is why I do all these things. And here I feel connected to the countryside, to nature, my emotions. I have time for my children, my grandchildren. I have time to explore my thoughts and the surroundings. So that's why it's important for us. It's about where life feels right.
Brilliant. Oh, you know what a fan I am. 54 million views. I was just looking it up. 54 million views of that TED talk. Apparently it's not the biggest one. Ted Robinson's bigger, but I need to look up his thing about education. But for me, that is the seminal 18-minute video that every business owner should
there is
watch.
a short, you know, if people have only got a 5-minute clip, watch the 5-minute clip. There's a shortened version, but 18 minutes of your life for something that 54 million people have felt inspired by is definitely worth doing.
Yes, and where life feels right, as you say, it pulls at the emotions. It says to people, this is where you're going to come and escape the city life. You know, you love your city life for all the facilities it gives you, but anyway, enough. It's not about.
It went. I'll just dwell on a bit, Ange. I mean, it went on that, you know, we want happy parks, happy team, happy guests, and that's going to lead to a happy future. And all of those things sort of tie in together. And it's strong because, you know, when things go wrong, and they do go wrong, that we can reference back to, it has to feel right. So if there's a disgruntled customer and you think about how to handle it, well, you have to make it feel right for them. That's the job we have to do.
And it's coming at it from their perspective, is it, Glenn? Is that
Absolutely.
it?
Absolutely. And it goes back to then the rewards follow. So it might cost more to fix something, but ultimately there's some just rewards.
Because they know you care.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
Okay, on to book number 4, drum roll.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of time together in Vistage the last 4-5 years. And before
Vistage is our, just to explain to everybody, this is our little business group that brought us all together. Yeah,
and it's been absolutely brilliant. Three great chairs, Ian Harris, Bob Batty, and now Steve Jackson. But prior to that, for probably about 25 years, it was the most amazing couple, Tim and Sharon Kidson. And they helped me as a young man in getting through. And they wrote a book, Pilgrim's Progress. And they, as a young business person starting out, supported and nurtured me. And they talked about getting the right skills, knowledge, and attitude. And again, thinking with my children in mind as they find their way through life, if you have those 3 things, then you'll find. There's a great story that Tim has told about his daughter going for her first interview. And at the end of the interview, the prospective employer said, Ursa, why do you think you should get this job? And she said, well, because I think I've got the skills, the knowledge, and the attitude. You're hard. And I think, wow, that's a great moment. So there's 10 chapters in this book, and it talks about a bullseye, which is the vision, and then the mission, and then across each sector of the pie chart of business, you know, finance, selling, buying. There's a little chapter on each with some golden rules. So that's been a really good Bible for me over the years.
Superb. I was going to ask you something on that, but I'm so blown away by skills, knowledge, and attitude. No, it's gone. Okay, on to book 5, please, if you would,
Okay.
Glenn.
Yeah, sure. So there's a sort of, I think there's a theme running through these. And if you want to put all of those things into practice, now there's a painful part of me sharing this now, because today it's the England-Wales rugby. And here is a proud Welshman with 2 children called Cerys and Rhodri. I'm holding up a book of when the England team won the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup. However, Clive Woodward combined all of those things that I've spoken about as he built that team towards 2003. And the other thing is, I think in life, between sport and business, there's so many analogies about building great teams and getting people to play in the right position, and you know, having the overall mission for the season and the tactics that you vary. You have a strategy, the tactics you vary for each game, the tactics you vary for two halves of the game. There's some fantastic graphs in there about when, you know, you get all aspects of the business coming together. And I suppose for me, the examples that would be, you know, you get great parks and great team and great guests, but also it's really important to have the community on board. And, you know, if you haven't got that Venn diagram, then, you know, that's not going to work either. And I'm rooted in the community. I love all things Herefordshire. I spend all my spare time on committees and, you know, all that sort of thing. I get something out of it, and I hope I'm making the little Herefordshire bit of the world a bit better as well.
Well, I'll have you know, from your Chamber of Commerce's point of view, they absolutely feel that that's what you're doing. You're interviewing Glenn Jones. Oh, yes, he's a highly revered member of. All right, okay.
Oh dear, they haven't heard the true me.
Yeah, I'll clutch my forelock. I've remembered my question. You know, this Pilgrim's Progress, the skills, knowledge, and attitude. Tell us about how those three had a part to play with you being elected president of the Young Farmers, please.
Oh, that's a great question. I'm going to have to, you know, in issue processing, when you have those questions that make you think, that's one of them.
Sorry, Vistage lingo for when you take a thorny subject and you deconstruct it. Sorry, do go on, Glenn. Well, let's take it one by one. What skills were you deemed to have that made you fit to be president of the Young Farmers?
Yes, a chairman, by the way. But
sorry, that one.
Yeah, so I suppose growing up on a farm, and then because I'd spent a lot of time with the public, because we'd started our diversifying journey, and so I love people, always have, but there's moments when maybe not so much so, but you know, 99% of the time.
Do you know how to plough a field?
I do, yes, I have ploughed, yeah, many times. I love it. You know, it's one of the best jobs in the world, because you can see what you've done at the end of the day. And you know, if you do it properly, it's incredibly satisfying and rewarding. A bit like putting the stripes in your lawn. You know, you can.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Yeah, Mike.
Yes,
and look,
husband.
Look proud. But yeah. So I suppose, and people skills are a big part of it. Farming knowledge helped a bit, but it's an amazing organisation, and so you know, they do a whole range of things: drama, public speaking, craft competitions. Thankfully, the children have just begun to get involved. It changed my life for sure. Well, I did leave school in those circumstances, and you know, most of my friends went off to further education and college and university and so on, and I didn't. I did an apprenticeship, and then because of my love of young farmers, all those amazing things that you said in the introduction, and that it's not just unique to me. If you want to grasp the opportunities, they are there. They're there now. I was fortunate. I had great friends who supported me on that journey, and are friends to this day. We have a Zoom every 3 weeks. That's another silver lining to this COVID cloud. We used to meet up once a year, and from all parts of the country, Cornwall to Northumberland and everything in between. We'd have a brilliant weekend. We've done it for over 20 years. And now, because of COVID, we couldn't do it. So we met on Zoom every 3 weeks. It's brought us closer together.
Brilliant.
So that's the skills, and I guess the knowledge and the attitude. It was fun. I enjoyed it. They were brilliant people. I did find it inspiring, and it just opened up so many opportunities. I went to Russia on a 2-week trip at the time of Glasnost and Perestroika, when that was all kicking off, and to be there at that moment in time. Lithuania was part of USSR, and there was demonstrations going on. It was only 2 weeks, but you know, I bonded with people that I'm connected with people that I'm still friendly with today. In fact, I think maybe even one zooming in. So you know, that's a long time ago. 30 more years probably.
So on these travels around the world, and you were glad handing the members of the royal family and prime ministers, what were you learning from that whole experience? What would you say you took out of that? How did you start that chairmanship, and how different you were at the end of it?
It definitely gave me incredible confidence to meet and talk to all those people, and they were inspiring in their own right. I mean, the Princess Royal, I think she's just amazing. She's a fantastic person. She was president, and so we met her a few times, and she's so down to earth. Yeah, got such.
I know the chief exec of Save the Children, and this is Princess Anne we're on about, isn't it?
Yeah.
They only knew when she was coming in when the secret policeman used to appear on the doors.
Yeah.
She just used to ring in. Her secretary used to ring in, check that she would be in, and then it's so understated, isn't she? The hardest working royal.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
And so meeting all those celebrities, yes, all those those people in high office. It has rubbed off on you, Glenn. It has, because you're comfortable in front of the camera, aren't you?
I guess so. I put on my Facebook post, I was a little apprehensive about today. I don't do it as much. It was a time when I did do a lot of that sort of thing, and you develop your confidence more, and then not so much of late. Although I've done a bit of that TV stuff, I do enjoy it. My daughter Kara, she's interested in acting, and so I really hope that she goes on and pursues that in a way. I at my school only ever one careers piece of advice, and I said I was interested in doing theatrical stuff and becoming an actor, and the careers teacher put me down and squished it then. But actually, again, it was probably a good thing, because if it was meant for me, I'd have pushed past.
Yes. So Simon Rattle says, if anybody asks him, can I play for you to see, you tell me, am I good enough? He says, no, you can't be questioning yourself. You've got to have it in you that I've got to do this. I've got to make it, like you cited at the top, Serena Williams and whoever. On to book 6, please, Glenn.
Okay, so this is where we go. This is on a bit different. I don't think many people have heard of this. Ricardo Sempler, and the book is called Maverick, and the title says it all. So in amongst the books that I've chosen so far, some well-known names, some great principles. This one's a bit left of centre. He's a Brazilian businessman. He took over a business from his father, so that resonated in a way. But the title says it all, because he turned it completely on everything on its head, and he empowered his team. I know it's classic cliche business talk, to make the decisions. Don't come to me with the problems, come to me with the solutions. In fact, don't even come to me with the solutions, just get on and do it. So, I mean, he took it to the extreme, and I'm not sure I'm quite brave enough for that. People deciding their own hours of work and rate of pay and everything, but the philosophy of everybody, run this as if it was your own, make the decision as if it was your own. If you want to buy something, would you buy it if it was your money? That's a great theme to keep hopefully instilling and running through the team.
So somebody come to you and said, I want to buy a swimming pool, Glenn.
Yeah, well, that's where I said I'm not quite that brave. We'd probably have to have a little chat. But if they could convince me and sell the case, then great. Let's go for it.
Okay, and that one resonated with you because you'd been given a share of the farm, as it were, as a part of your startup gift for Discover Parks. But there's also pressure that. Sorry, yes, no.
Yeah. So family business. I mean, we could talk about this for days.
Please, yes.
I mean, there's so many positives and there's so many negatives. I've got a lot of farming friends, obviously, and family farm businesses can be tricky with the succession issue. And my father was absolutely amazing that when he said, I don't want these rows, that farms that get split down the middle and fenced down the middle of the farmyard, and never the twain shall meet. So in 1997, when Tony Blair was elected, there was going to be a rush budget with Gordon Brown 6 weeks later. And although we talked about this for years, it was the catalyst that triggered us to dissolve the family partnership. And I had some funds out, toured the country from Cornwall to Cumbria, looking at parks. Had a dream come true when we were able to buy Pearl Lake. Huge borrowings, lots of work, but it was a great moment. But I paid tribute to Mum and Dad for that foresight. Despite that, every family, although they were running their own parks, my brother his, there's sometimes issues and tensions that crop up. But we spend Christmas and time together as a family. We are strong, despite all these business difficulties. now. You know, Hannah and I work together. We go home at night. We might have disagreed about something in the day. It's very hard to get that separation. So thankfully, we've been a great team. We dovetail together very well. I'm all, come on, whoa, let's go for it. And she says, let's just think about that. And, you know,
the yin and the yang.
The yin and the yang. So we've been a great team. So family businesses, lots of positive things, lots of things that need open and honest conversations about. They often don't happen.
Now, that's ever so interesting then, because a very high-powered businessman the other day sent me an email saying, I don't like confrontation. I think, oh, right, okay, you could use a bit of vistage. Go into that, especially when it's amongst your family, you know, your most treasured ones, your wife, your parents, your brother, etc. How do you, when you've got a very sensitive conversation, how do you approach it?
It's probably the most difficult thing I can think of in a family business, and sometimes it's good to have an outside facilitator, and you know, or person sat there. Facilitator sounds a bit of a posh word probably for somebody just keeping you know, that there's somebody independent in the room, so you can do it that way. You know, obviously, you know, no shouting. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what we want to achieve. If this is successful, how will this conversation go? But of course, classically, these conversations do not happen. You know, they spend all the time together around the farmhouse kitchen table, and you know, the son will. I got a friend who his grandfather was 90 and controlled the checkbook, and in those days, you're on a farm, the checkbook was everything, you know. And then when he passed away, his father was 60, he was 30, and his father passed him in some symbolic moment, passed the checkbook on a generation, and it skipped him. He'd been spent all his life waiting for that moment and pass on, which I think was incredible. But farmers particularly talk, definitely sit and talk about the issues, head them off, and also I think it is easier before there's spouses and children and all those sorts of things come along,
because then you get other points of view being thrown into the pot. Okay, Glenn, we're fast running out of time. We're already at 20 to 11 and we want to be off by 11 o'clock prompt. Number 7, drum roll, your last book.
Okay, so here we go. Now, Nicola Whiting, I think, is going to be a guest of yours coming up. I read that somewhere.
Oh, thank you for that segue, Mr. Jones. On the 8th of March, Monday the 8th of March, everybody, is International Women's Day. Chairing a panel, I am Nicola Whiting, but also Suki, who's set up a business during lockdown, and Mel, and also Anya Potts, the fab Worcester jeweller. Thanks, Glenn.
Okay, so when we visited Nicola's business, she gave
which is Titania, and it's on the tithing in Worcester. There's cybersecurity people,
and so she gave everybody that went, they did rather, between them, a copy of this book, and they give every member of their team a copy. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier about that kindness, and you know, give more in life, and give without prejudice or thought, and you will receive more. And I think this, you know, there's been very many sad things about COVID, but we got very polarized, and the whole Trump thing, you know, it's very divisive, and that's sad for so many reasons. But I think if we all were able to show a bit of more kindness, I mean, social media is brilliant in lots of ways, but oh goodness, when you read some of those threads about how animated people are or misunderstood things, I think just pause for a moment and put yourself in the other person's shoes. So that's my book to finish on. A little bit more kindness in the world, please.
How do you drill that into your kids? Be kind.
Goodness. Yeah, be kind. I tell you again. No, I think, well, hopefully, again, you know, we spend a lot of time together now. And so, you know, children learn by watching and observing, I hope, and it rubs off. And so I hope a little bit has rubbed off somewhere. We'll see.
And which book would you think, oh, goodness, I wish you'd given me that book when I was your age?
Yeah, it's back to that Richard Branson one, I think, because when I reread it, I realized how powerful those chapter headings were. Just keep flicking through those all the time.
Lovely. And the one that you'd take to your desert island?
Yeah, I guess that one. Although, you know, I'd probably take a Bear Grylls How to Survive one.
No, you can't have that. This is a business book club. Sorry. Lovely. Over to Anita. Anita, I'm sorry, that was grand, Glenn. Thank you so much for doing this. Anita is the curator of the questions.
Thank you, Ange. Oh, that was fantastic. I've absolutely loved this. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Glenn and Ange. Yeah, some questions coming through the chat. Jason was asking what's the title of the last book, and I think it's The Go-Giver. Is that the one you mean?
Yeah, the Go-Giver, a little story about a powerful business idea. It became a whole cult in a way, and I think there's a lot more to it. Perhaps when you get Nicola, you can ask her more about it. But
it's a 2-hour read, isn't it, Glenn?
Yeah, it is, and keep rereading it, reminding yourself of it. Yeah, leave it in the bathroom.
Good idea. Stephen's saying, Stephen's one of our victims, isn't he, Ange?
He is.
He's shared his top 10 with us, well, top 10 plus actually, hasn't he, before. An interesting and eclectic selection of books, Glenn, thank you very much. He's saying, Lucas is asking, how has Glenn managed his business through the pandemic, and what book author most inspired him during presumably a difficult time?
Running any business been through COVID has been difficult and testing, and an emotional roller coaster. And when we were together with the team at Christmas time, I tried to say thank you, and I kind of choked up a bit because they'd all played their part massively, whether they'd been furloughed or working from home or flexi furloughed or coming in, and how they'd rallied round. It had been testing for everybody. Everybody had their own personal journey. All those great stories about, we're all going through the same storm, but in a different boat. Thankfully, because of what we do, we're incredibly safe, form of holidaying. And so when we were open, we were very busy. Staycation looks though it's going to bounce back really strongly. So we're in quite a good place there. That's helped us. And, our owners and guests have been very supportive, despite all the difficult circumstances. So I think I said earlier, for all the business books in the world, for me, being able to shut off and forget about some of that stuff and just immerse myself in a really good book was, pick whatever bit of fiction. All of these are great business books, but in COVID, I just needed to put my head in a different place.
And I think that's You Are Awesome by Matthew Syed. You're saying if that was, because you can easily dip into that as well, can't you?
Yeah. So I think I saw a question just pop up on the screen. I would say that's great for a 14 or a 40-year-old, frankly. Yeah, Matthew Syed, definitely.
Thank you, Glenn. And Steve's asking, what's been your biggest learning from COVID?
Time with the family has been great. One of the I'd be interested if anybody knows a book about values. Part of the Vistage journey has been to think about our values, and we went through a process, and I suppose it's how we are as people. Trust and respect, open and honest, passion and pride. That's what we say all of our team must have, and that's what we must give to our guests, our owners. So I suppose our values have really helped me. It's like a bedrock to hang on to when things are difficult.
I think what's so valuable about that as well is you've given your team a framework to work within. You're giving them that freedom, perhaps not as much as that Brazilian guy, Maverick guy, but you're giving them a framework to say, as long as you're making decisions within this grid, you're safe. You're on the straight and narrow, as it were.
Yeah.
And I will forgive you if you go out of those lines, but you've got good reason for it. I'll forgive you. Not forgive you. That makes it sound like you're an autocratic leader. You're not at all like that, are you? You're very collaborative. But do you know what I mean? It says to people, you're safe. You're psychologically safe in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. Put your head on the pillow at night if you've lived by those things, and you'll sleep soundly.
Lovely. Any more?
We've got a really good question from Chris. So he's asking, Glenn, where do you see the big opportunities in business as we come out of COVID, not just for your business, but business in general?
Great question. The digital world is undoubtedly the future. Robotics is coming. Back to Tim and Sharon's book, he talks about tacit knowledge. So many things can be automated and so on. So think about the knowledge and the power that's within here. So the big four in the world are dominating too much. I think, frankly, it's I don't like Donald Trump, but that Facebook and Twitter removed him. Who are they to decide that. You know, he was saying some terrible things. He was like, "That's right. I get all that." But you know, if we're not careful, if there's a Chinese takeover of Facebook one day, oh my goodness me, where will that end? So, but the digital world is definitely, if you know, again for the young folks listening in, that's got to be the future. And you know, this time has really highlighted, you know, all these Zoom things that we're doing. We'd never dreamt of doing all that stuff so much anyway before.
Absolutely. Thank you. Stephen saying a good book around values is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits. Anne just mentioned that one before. We've heard of it in previous sessions. I'll take a second here to mention the fact that that one is actually available as an ebook on BorrowBox. So that's our digital libraries app. I'll share all the details with you in an email after this session. Michelle is asking, has your reading influenced your goals and have they changed over the last year?
Another great question. I suppose we've all got different goals. You've got life goals. I always knew that I wanted to run my own business, and that I found something that I love so much is brilliant. Every day I feel that, you know, the park's a little bit better and I've learned a little bit, and so that's been great. And there's milestones along the journey. And what was the second part, Anita? Sorry.
Sorry, have they changed over the last year?
Have they changed? Hannah is probably listening and would say yes. But you know, my father's 82 and still working, and I'm not sure that I want to be quite doing that. But I because I enjoy what I do, it's not work. It feels more like fun, and then that's easy then. So, but I think, you know, we all want to travel clearly a little bit more, and I really value the time with the family. And you know, we can get stuck on this hamster wheel of life and keep running. So sometimes just get off and go for a walk with everybody.
Thank you, Glenn. Jason suggesting Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules for Life. And he's saying, yeah, this is a great book. Jason is a very keen reader in the room as well, so I'm happy to have him here. Also, Lucas is asking, any plans to write your own book, Glenn?
A great question. If I did, I think I'd like to do it in the sort of Robert Harris mold, taking something in life and then maybe spinning it out into the what if things had gone differently. So perhaps that's linking back to the earlier question. If I'm going to get off or step back a little bit at some point, not yet, but at some point, then maybe taking the time to write a book would be, you know, another thing that I'd love to do. But you know, when there's a bit less pressure at work.
Thank you, lovely. And Jason's mentioned Principles by Ray Dalio as well. So we're getting some really great recommendations from the room for books around values. So thank you very much, everyone, for contributing. That's it for questions for now.
Yeah, if I could just finish off, Glenn, with what next? Where are you going next? What's the plan?
Oh, great question, Ange. I guess the quick thing is more of the same, trying to have just thought a little bit more about, it's cliched, I know, that work-life balance thing, but you know, that's getting that right is important. I've got an amazing family, and you know, sometimes business people, I read in today's Times that the famous chef that had COVID at Christmas time, he said he's 71 years old, Brim Blanc, I think, had and he'd nearly died. He'd been in COVID, ICU, and now he's going to spend more time with friends and his family. And I think that's great. But at 71, you know, he's worked 80 hours a week for how many years? He should have learned that lesson a bit earlier, frankly. So getting that balance right while continuing to, you know, enjoy the business that we've got and do more with, you know, I was involved with the redevelopment of Hereford City. I really enjoyed that, felt incredibly proud of the things we're able to do there. So stuff like that, I love it. Brilliant.
And next month, Glenn, we've got your neighbour, Mrs. Hilditch, as in Lady Hilditch of White Heron Estates, I would say. Jo Hilditch is a farmer, and also she grows the black currants, doesn't she, for Ribena, as well as, ladies and gentlemen, if you've not got into British cassis, it's beautiful because it's not quite so sweet as other cassises. So I'll see if I can cut a deal with her that she perhaps gives it, sends out a little bottle so we can have a tasting at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Anyway, she's also a property entrepreneur, and she went into Dragon's Den, got 3 offers and refused them all, didn't she, Glenn? Because she thought, I can do it better on my own. Why do you love having her as a neighbour, Glenn?
Oh, she's absolutely brilliant. She's going to be High Sheriff of Herefordshire fairly soon, hopefully. And when we have travelled to Vistage events together, and you know, sometimes they can be an hour or 2 hours in the car, we have just talked non-stop about the business experiences. We've shared a lot in common. She's been a great friend, and I've learned a lot from listening to her. So you can always learn. I love spending time with other business owners. I'm always feel inspired.
Brilliant. So that's the last Saturday of March. If everybody wants to come along to this, have you enjoyed this morning, Glenn?
I have enjoyed it. Yeah, it's been great, and the process of choosing the books has been great. So yeah, maybe it's a little exercise. Everybody at home can think about what books I'd choose. Yeah.
Yes, thanks for that. Idea. And if you could give us any other ideas as to how we could improve this session, or we're all ears open on that front as well. If there's any more questions, Anita, I'm going to sign off.
Yeah, well, Linda's just put in, thank you, Glenn, who has always been a massive inspiration to so many, and is a privilege to have met Glenn when he was NFYFC chairman. So that's from Linda in the chat there.
Very kind, thank you.
Thank you.
So if we could, sorry, go on, Anita.
Sorry, Ange, just wanted to mention, if there are any more keen readers in the room, people who want to come along and share the experience like Glenn's done today, feel free to get in touch with the BIPC and let us know. We'd love to have you on.
BIPC is the Business and Intellectual Property Centre, really good resource for anybody looking to protect their intellectual property, which is more important than ever, especially as we get digital assets. Thank you very much, Anita, for making everything happen this morning. But big round of applause, everybody.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you so much. If you want more of it, tune in for Joe Hilditch. Anita will be sending out the email for the end of March, but also on the 8th of March, Monday 8th of March, as Glenn mentioned, is International Women's Day. Fabulous women in conversation about Empower Me and about how we women need to build our self-confidence, no jokes please for me, how we need to build our self-confidence, our self-esteem, so that we can challenge and bring about change. Hope you can be there. Thank you so much, one and all. Bye for now.
Thank you. Happy Saturday. Bye, everybody.
Bye.